Morning, and welcome to all in attendance this morning for a settlement conference related to dockets 2013-298-E and 2015-163E. These dockets are pertain to the Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress cost recovery mechanism and portfolio of demand-side management and energy efficiency programs. I would like for everyone in attendance to realize this is a settlement conference, the purpose of which is to respond to some questions or just seeking clarification from commissioners on points in the settlement agreement that has been filed in both of these dockets. We appreciate the parties being willing to meet with us and respond to a few questions and provide some explanations. I just want to reiterate, this is not a hearing. No witnesses will be sworn. We do appreciate having people available, whether they're attorneys or members of the or employees of the respective parties, to be able to explain these programs to us. We do need to take appearances so that we do know who is participating today. So I'm going to start with a roll call of commissioners. District 1.
Commissioner Williams is here virtually, I think.
Thank you, Commissioner. District 3.
Caston, present virtually.
District 4.
Irvin, present virtually.
District 5.
Present virtually.
Our commissioner from District 6 is on military leave today. District 7.
Appearing virtually.
And District 2, I'm present here in the hearing room. Thank you, commissioners. If we could get appearances from parties. Is there someone here from Duke Energy Carolinas, Duke Energy Progress?
Yes, good morning, Madam Vice Chair and Commissioners. I'm Sam Wellborn, appearing as outside counsel for Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress. Also have with me this morning two subject matter experts from the companies, Linda Schaefer and Tim Duff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wellborn. Anyone from Nucor Steel?
Hey, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. Rob Smith and Mike Lavanga on behalf of Nucor. Morning.
Thank you both. Anyone from South Carolina Coastal Conservation League, SACE, or Natural Resources Defense Council?
Good morning, Madam Chair. This is Kate Lee Mixon here representing Southern Alliance for Clean Energy and the South Carolina Coastal Conservation League in the Duke Progress proceeding, and Sierra Club and Natural Resources Defense Council, in addition to the previous clients in the Duke Carolinas proceeding. And I also have with me here today Forrest Bradley Wright, who's the Energy Efficiency Director for SACE.
Thank you very much, and I apologize that I neglected to name Sierra Club when I called your clients. Walmart?
No worries. It's enough.
Okay, Walmart?
Good morning, Madam Vice Chair. This is Stephanie Eaton for Walmart, and I'm appearing for both dockets.
Thank you, Ms. Eaton. Office of Regulatory Staff?
Good morning, Madam Vice Chair. Jenny Pittman and Chris Huber for ORS.
Thank you, Ms. Pittman. Just to kind of give you what I understand some of the issues, where they pertain to, so that whoever needs to respond to them can. I think there was some questions for further explanation regarding the change from the TRC test to the UTC test. Also believe there was some questions regarding the opt-out. I think there was originally a difference between the DEC and DEP mechanisms, and I believe that there was, in the settlement agreement, there was a proposal that Duke Energy Carolinas would include some portions that had been in the DEP mechanism. They wanted to include them in the DEC one, and if I'm wrong on that, you can correct me. And then I think that there were also some questions regarding the change or regarding the portfolio performance incentive and the program return incentive. And also, I think there may have been a question about net loss revenue and how those would be determined. So I know that I can't say that that's an exclusive list, but that was some of the areas where there were some questions, just so that you kind of have an idea. And how would the parties like to proceed? This is really an informal discussion to clarify. Would it be better for us just to ask questions, or would you like to present an overview, just give us an overview with some of those thoughts in mind? Mr. Welborn, can we start with you since these are Duke dockets?
Yes, ma'am. That makes sense. And we did receive some questions from the hearing officer in these dockets on Monday. Our team, our subject matter experts are prepared to provide kind of a general overview of how the cost recovery mechanisms work, and then can kind of go into those issues that you referenced specific to the settlement, if that pleases the commission and other parties.
I think that would work for us. Like I said, this is somewhat informal. I'm kind of likening this to parties talking to a judge in a judge's chamber. So if you wouldn't mind, just if y'all could proceed and just kind of explain it to us that way, that this is what the settlement agreements propose and how y'all reach that. I would like that, just for my clarification, and I meant to look at the docket before I got in here, but are there any parties to these dockets that are not signatories to these settlement agreements?
No, the signatories are inclusive of all the parties to the dockets.
Okay, thank you. And with that, Mr. Welborn, would you mind proceeding?
Ms. Pittman, I see your video's on. Do you have anything to contribute before we get started?
Thank you, Mr. Welborn. Madam Vice Chair, real brief. I understand the nature of this proceeding. This settlement conference is for clarification. ORS does have some concern that information gleaned from this conference will be used to make a decision and render an order in these dockets. And it appears witnesses won't be sworn in. And I'm not sure if there's a court reporter there transcribing, so we just wanted to express that concern.
Ms. Pittman, there is a court for the parties. Thank you for that. There is a court reporter present, and there are, this is being videotaped or recorded. What is the nature of is there a specific concern? Because all the parties are present, so there's not an ex parte consideration here.
Yes, the concern is if information gathered today is used in the decision-making process, but it isn't a part of the formal record, that is just our concern.
Well, does the fact that this is being recorded and that there is a court reporter present, does that alleviate any of your concern? Because there will be a record available.
Yes, Madam Vice Chair. If it's part of the record, that does alleviate our concern.
Thank you. Mr. Welborn?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Ms. Schaefer, are you available to kind of give some background as to the mechanism generally? And then we'll hand things over to Mr. Duff to talk about the settlement, the issues that were flagged for us.
Sure, I can do that. So my name is Linda Slayer Schaefer, and I am the Strategy and Collaboration Manager for EE and DSM programs in South Carolina. And basically the mechanism is, there's three primary purposes. It is to provide incentives and cost recovery for the company's investments in EE. It's to allow a return on those investments so that energy efficiency and demand side management is at least as financially attractive as building new generation. And it establishes rate and charges so that the company's net income
is the same as it would have been had these programs not been in place. And it accomplishes that through recovery of program costs, lost revenue, and the portfolio performance incentive. Each year, Duke projects what the cost, the lost revenue, and the incentive will be for the upcoming program year and files that in its annual rider filing. In subsequent years, we true up those projections. The mechanism also does a number of other things. It specifies how costs are allocated across jurisdictions, how programs are added, modified, or terminated. It discusses what customers are eligible to opt out and how stakeholders can engage. It also specifies how evaluation, measurement, and verification, which we refer to as E&V, is performed. Along with the mechanism, or because of the mechanism, Duke is able to offer a wide variety of programs. Both Duke Carolinas and Duke Progress have 7 non-residential programs, and then Duke Carolinas has 8 residential programs, and Duke Progress has 9 residential programs. I could talk about those programs for a long time, but I won't, and I'll just wait and see if you have any questions and give the details. But suffice it to say, they cover everything from income qualified programs to residential assessment to your traditional rebate, and then all the way on the non-residential side through engineering, designing assistance, performance incentives, you name it. And one reason why our suite of programs is so broad and stays fresh and responsive to the market is because we engage with our stakeholders wholeheartedly through the Carolinas Collaborative. That is a advisory forum of, we have 36 members right now from approximately 24 across the state, the region, and even the nation. And these folks make sure that we don't have any blind spots in our programs and that we are staying on the cutting edge of everything that we should be doing. So that's the overview, and I'm available for questions about any of that as we move forward. But with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Waltman.
Thank you, Linda. Mr. Duff, are you available to discuss the settlement at a high level and some of the questions that we received related to the settlement?
Yes, I am. I've clicked start video, but it's taking a minute. All right. I see myself, so I'm assuming everyone else can. My name is Tim Duff. I am the General Manager of Portfolio Analysis and Regulatory Implementation. One of the responsibilities I have in my role is to oversee the group that is charged with helping to develop the regulatory mechanisms and gain regulatory approval of programs associated with energy efficiency and demand response for Duke Energy Progress, Duke Energy Carolinas, as well as some of the other Duke Energy utilities. And just want to take the opportunity to give a brief overview of kind of what transpired leading up to the settlement. Every 3 to 4 years, we work with stakeholders to reevaluate the mechanism to determine if it is still being effective. And I need to really start off by saying that, as Ms. Schaefer mentioned, our programs have been exceedingly effective. We have Duke Energy Carolinas and Progress have been recognized routinely as the leaders in the Southeast in energy efficiency, and we credit that in large part not only to the commitment that the company has made, but to the constructive regulatory mechanisms we've operated under, as well as the stakeholders who we've regularly engaged with. When we started to look at the mechanism that was in place, we always look for things that can be improved upon while not trying to stray from the fact that the mechanism has been very successful. In the course of looking at this mechanism review and looking at modifications, there were a couple of changes that were looked at as being needed. One of the changes was to move from the primary cost effectiveness screen used in program approval and evaluation is to move from the total resource cost test to the utility cost test. This move was done because it will make more programs cost effective, and we think actually aligns better with what utility ratepayers and customers should be concerned with respect to recovery. The total resource cost test looked at not only the utility costs of running the program, but it also factored in the out-of-pocket costs that customers paid on top of utility incentives in order to participate in the program. This created an issue because as energy efficiency codes and standards advance, the incremental cost that customers have to pay is going up, but each incremental level of efficiency improvement, the amount of savings actually goes down. It's just the wonders of engineering. And so essentially as efficiency technologies progress, the TRC and that incremental cost test was creating issues with respect to maintaining cost effectiveness of what we deem to be critical programs such as HVAC incentive programs that motivate customers to take advantage of more efficient HVAC equipment. One of the other problems with the TRC test is because it looks at incremental cost of customers, if the company were to reduce the incentive it was providing in order to justify the cost of the savings, in order to maintain cost effectiveness, because that would essentially increase the incremental cost to customers after the incentive, it would have no effect on the cost effectiveness. So in discussing this with our stakeholders, we recognized that moving to the UCT would allow us to keep programs cost effective, as well as not be subject to the kind of negative impacts of advancements of energy efficiency standards and how it impacted incremental cost. It's also important to note that the utilities incentive, which is designed to align customer and company interests with respect to the incentive, has long been based off of the UCT test. The other significant change in the mechanism was that we were looking to try and provide more motivation and incentive associated with providing assistance for non-cost effective programs targeted at low income and programs of other need. While the company was able to recover its costs on these programs and get lost revenues, the impact of offering commission-approved non-cost effective programs would actually be a penalty to the company, a negative incentive, because the net benefit of the program would be negative because the cost associated with offering those types of programs exceeds the avoided cost benefit. So in order to try and motivate more programs at that, parties agreed that we would add something called a PRI, or a performance recognition incentive, which was based only on avoided cost versus the net benefits. Associated with the addition of this incentive, in order to keep things equivalent, we proposed to reduce the PPI amount collected on all non-PRI programs, or all programs not eligible for the PRI. So those, in a nutshell, were the major changes. There was also a continuation of a incentive program, a bonus incentive for reaching a 1% target, as well as the addition of a penalty in the mechanisms that were filed for not hitting a 0.5% of energy efficiency, of energy savings as a percent of retail sales. When we filed the settlement, after talking about these proposals with all parties on December 4th with the Commission, there were really only a few substantive changes to the mechanisms that were filed. The settlement provided that while the company was still committed to aggressively pursuing energy efficiency and DSM with the goal of reaching 1% of annual energy sales, including opt-out, that we would remove the financial penalty and incentive associated with those goals and milestones. And the other change was that we basically agreed that for the purposes of modeling riders and any program filings that would be made in 2021, we would assume that the mechanism was going to be in place and utilize UCT so that it would allow us to recognize the benefits of these changes in the mechanism in upcoming rider and programmatic approval filings. So in a nutshell, those were the large changes that were done to improve the effectiveness of the mechanism and build on past success, as well as what was designed in the settlement that was filed with the Commission on December 4th. And I'm also available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Duff, for that overview of the revisions to the mechanisms and the settlement. There was a question that we had received about the impact to rates of the changes to the PPI and the PRI, the incentives. I know that you mentioned that the PPI had been reduced and offset. Do you know the impact to the rates as a result of these changes to the incentive?
Yes, the results based off of modeling that we did, the results are exceedingly minimal. For DEC, had we applied these changes to the most recent rider calculation, it would have resulted in very minor reductions in the rider amounts for all classes of customers and rates under it, with the largest reduction being about 0.03 of a cent per kWh. And on DEP, there was a slight increase for one rate class and a decrease for the others. The increase was 1/1000th of a penny per kWh. So in structuring the revisions that we made, it was really intended to have a very minimal impact on rates, but shift influence and focus on more of those low income and programs that historically have not been cost effective, and we're looking for more focus.
Thank you. Madam Vice Chair, I think that's our background information in our attempt to address some of the questions that were asked, but certainly, we're available if there are other questions or if there's follow-up needed.
Thank you, Mr. Welborn, and thank you, Ms. Schaefer and Mr. Duff, for your explanations. Let me ask commissioners, are there any commissioner questions? Commissioners, going once?
Vice Chair Belzer?
Commissioner Williams?
Thank you. This is kind of a related question, but in a prior filing, and I think this question might be for Mr. Duff, but you all talked some about the commercial energy efficiency program and the opt-out and the impact of that on your success. In other words, I think there was a number given for what your success rate was with including the opt-outs as you currently are proposing, but then you gave a higher number if you did not have to include those opt-outs. And I just wondered, since you just freshly thought about this, what the thinking was in keeping the opt-outs in your energy efficiency metrics. Does that question make sense?
Yes. So the inclusion of opt-out in the calculation of 1% was something that was just kind of discussed and agreed to with parties. Again, it was, I would say, the process of kind of comprehensive discussions. And well, the number is higher if you reduce the sales baseline for opted out customers. We do measure it both ways, but for the purpose of the metric, parties agreed that that was the metric that we wanted to use as a goal to shoot for with respect to hitting 1% of annual energy reductions.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear you do count it both ways because I think it's good to know both numbers. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other commissioners?
Madam Vice Chair, one quick question, if I may.
Is
This
that
Mike.
Commissioner Caston? Please proceed.
Yes, sir. Thank you. In the proposed order, it links the net loss revenue with pilot programs or measures that will be developed into full-fledged programs. Can you clarify for me how the company would determine net loss revenue from this process? I mean, I read the definition, but can you kind of clarify that some?
Ms. Schaefer, do you want to take that one, or would you like me to answer it?
Sure, I'll take that. So if I am sure I'm understanding your question, you want to know how we calculate net loss revenue for pilot programs? And I believe it's not that much different the way we calculate net loss revenue for our regular programs, in that we project what the measures will be that we will be installing or promoting, and what the participation rate will be from that, and therefore what the impact of those measures will be. And we know the kilowatt hour savings and the sales that would have been associated with those kilowatt hours had we actually sold them. We subtract from that lost revenue the avoided costs, so the fuel and the variable O&M that we will not have to spend, and the remainder of that is our net loss revenue factor. And then with pilot programs, it's somewhat difficult because we don't know the exact amount of interest that we'll get or the uptake for these measures, but we will estimate that on the front end when we're developing, and we have a wide range of experts on staff, and we reach out, and we depend on the collaborative for this information too, to estimate the effectiveness of those pilot programs. And then we would, once the term of the pilot has run out, then we would true it up on the back end. Is that what you wanted to know? Did I answer that question earlier?
Yes, ma'am, pretty much. So in essence, if I'm hearing it correctly, when you go from the pilot program to the full-fledged program, in essence, that will be the method and methodology, same methodology.
Yes. Yes, and our projections will be a lot better when we go to the full-fledged program for having run the pilot, and we'll use the lessons learned there so that our projections are closer.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Caston. Anyone else? Going once?
Madam Vice Chair.
Commissioner Thomas.
Commissioner Thomas. Yes, I don't really have a question. I would just like to say that I appreciate the involvement of all of the interested parties and working together, such a robust process, and coming to an agreement. Thank you for that. That's all I had to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Anyone else? Okay. Any of the other parties wish to add anything to what has been offered? Okay. I too would like to thank the parties for being available today and providing explanation. I seem to have been disappeared from the screen here. Providing this explanation. Thank you for y'all's work that y'all have done to reach this agreement, and I'm waiting for the picture to come up, y'all, so bear with me a minute. Since I know you all want to see me. Anyway, but thank y'all very much. I think that your being available and to respond and provide a little bit more depth has been helpful. So with that, just please know that we thank you for your explanations today, and we're going to close this settlement conference. Hope y'all have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.